Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel for a live review and player rating show of Brentford 0, Chelsea 1. And oh my days, have our hearts calmed down? I'm not quite sure. One thing's for sure, Edouard Mendy is absolutely incredible. Oh my days, I've never seen a goalkeeper make this many saves in a game, I don't think. I haven't even seen the numbers. I don't know how many he made, but it felt like 1,500. And he made all of them incredibly well. And I'm very pleased because, people will look at this game and say, oh, you only scraped the win against Brentford. Well, at least we did. Liverpool didn't. So, that's one thing. They've only lost one game so far this season, and that was, Brighton scraping it against them, if you will, with a last-minute winner. So there's a reason why Brentford have had a good start. It's not like, oh, Chelsea are now bad. No, Brentford are also just good. Well, also we weren't great. But we'll get into that. I'm joined by two very, very special guests for today's player ratings and review live show. Of course, first and foremost, by Mr. Uncle Jesters. How you doing, mate? Thank you for coming on, as always. And how was that game for you?
I can't lie. There at the end, I was the heart was pumping pretty good. Got a little nervous, but we just seem to have the knack of pulling these out, which is what champions usually do to win the title. Is you have bad games, and we've had a run of them where we're not flowing on offense, and the defense picks us up, and you let one goal stand. So again, without a little bit of nervousness there toward the end, I'm doing all right.
There you go. I agree. I'm the same, to be honest. Clutch, what about yourself? Thank you for coming on, as always, of course. But yeah, it was just much more tense than it, well, arguably should have been, I guess. But it was just a strange game. Like, we didn't really create much. I mean, we had two big offside moments, but they were offside. But outside of the offside moments, we only really had the goal. Otherwise, what did we, like, offensively, we didn't really have much, which again is credit to Brentford as much as it is criticism to ourselves. But it was tense at the end, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was very tense, but I enjoyed the game overall. But I mean, it's the same thing that Chelsea's been doing for the last 7 months or so. Great defense, but struggling on attacking ideas. It's individual moments of brilliance that end up bailing us out in the end, and then our defense. But I'm not too worried. We had Silva and Rudiger out, and we had a couple players step in and do pretty well. So, I mean, I'm not too worried, and we're going to go on to Malamo and take them down 10-0.
Bloody hopefully. Because it definitely won't be, well, I was going to say it won't be easier, but it probably will. Let's see about that. I don't know, games like this, they always just... They leave me very confused because at the end, I'm obviously very happy because we got the 3 points. That's the main thing. We're top of the league. But then when I watch like the Liverpool-Watford game and the part of it that I watched today, I'm like, we just don't play like that. And we haven't played like that except in the second half against Spurs all season, to be honest. And we need to fix that problem. Like, I don't know what exactly the problem is. We've tried a few formations. We've tried multiple different players. All of them attacking players seem to be completely out of form. We'll talk about, obviously, the ones that played today. And we need to fix those problems. For the time being, it's great and it's fantastic that we can get through a tough spell and still win our games and be top of the league and hopefully get out of the tough spell, start battering teams like we would like, and then win the league. That'd be great. Well, usually when we do well, we win games, as happens with Chelsea. But then when we get periods of a season where we don't do well, we start losing half the time. But now, even though we're not doing that well in terms of performances, we're still winning all the time. So, Jester, from your point of view, is that the main positive, or is the fact that we're struggling as much as we are in some games or in a lot of games at the moment, is that the bigger concern? Like, what outweighs the other for you?
Well, I've always been taught that defense wins you championships. Mm-hmm. All right. So looks like we have that in our locker already. But no, you have to score goals because at some point, the defense is going to have a bad game. It's going to happen. Somebody's going to make a mistake. You just chalk it up. It's going to happen. So you have to have an offense that's clicking, that's able to pick the defense up from time to time. Mm-hmm. So it's worrying that we're not putting the ball in the back of the net. Some would say it's the personnel. Somewhat of the personnel we had on the pitch today. We had sans Ruben, Kante, and Kovacic are really not known for their offensive prowess. Mm-hmm. And then you only have two attackers above that. So
You also have to question it a little bit from Thomas Tuchel, in my opinion. Like, people, it's funny to me, and it's a weird agenda that I don't really understand. Obviously, Tuchel won us the Champions League, so he gets way more leeway by everybody. But think back to the Sarri days where Sarri played Kante, and so many people were having a go at Sarri day in, day out. That's not Kante's position, blah, blah, blah. Tuchel does it. No one says a word about it. And Tuchel plays him way higher up the pitch than Sarri ever did. Like, Kante was basically our number 10 today. You know how we spoke about the lineup yesterday? Whether it's a 3-5-2 with 2 8s and 1 6, or is it 2 6s and 1 10? It was kind of a mix. But if there was 1 10, it was Kante and not Kova and not Ruben. I'm like, I don't get it. Like, Kante is great, and considering how hyped he is for, and deservedly so hyped he is for his defensive abilities, he is really good on the ball, both in passing and in dribbling, but not compared to other forward stars. In comparison to those, he's not incredible at that, right? And sometimes we feel that, I tweeted, Kante hasn't had a good game since the second half against Spurs, and people was having a go at me immediately. I'm like, but what are you looking for? Like, if he is our most attacking midfielder, you need to expect him to create something. It's different if he plays as the number 6, like Ruben. You can't sit here and expect Ruben to create chance after chance. He's the lowest and the deepest of the midfielders. So it's not his job to create the chances in the box. But Kante was the highest of the 3 midfielders and didn't create anything, bar the 1 chance for Werner, which got blocked, and fair play to Kante, did well in that situation. And I'm not even saying Kante was god-awful. I'm just saying he was good. And no, not good. He was decent, acceptable, but not good. And we haven't seen Kante being good in a minute. Obviously, he was, not injured, but he had the Rona and obviously international break. So it's not been that many games, even though Spurs is a long time ago in our heads. But it's still something that we need to fix. And like you said there, Jester, like, whenever I imagine a 3-5-2, I know you said it there, you would like it 1-6 with 2 8s. I just don't think any of our 8s will ever be attacking enough to do that. Maybe Mason, but Mason came on at a moment of the game where Brentford had completely won control of the game, and whoever we brought on wouldn't have changed anything by that point, I don't think. And I just don't think we have any 8s that are attacking enough to help with the problems that Lukaku and Werner have up front together. So we need to just, and I don't understand why we didn't change the shape. Like, it's not like we were that great to constantly stick with the same shape. I'm very, very confused. Very, very confused. But Clutch, let me get back to you. What did you make of the lineup when it initially came out? Let me just run people through. I can't get it up on screen in a second anyway. But obviously, Edouard Mendy was in goal, the big man of the day. We'll get to his rating, obviously, in a minute. But then we had a back 3, like you touched upon already, with obviously a couple of players missing, and Antonio Rudiger being injured, and Thiago Silva. I'm still unaware as whether he's just not fit because he came back yesterday or not ready to play, jet lag and everything, or whether he's quarantining. Is he quarantining for... Sorry?
Quarantine. I think everybody that came back from Brazil had to quarantine, because he posted a picture on Instagram saying quarantine.
That is true. And I saw that as well. And then I saw somebody else starting his 10-day quarantine, but I don't think that part's true. I think after 5 days, he can kind of test himself out of quarantine, but I'm not 100% sure. So who knows? Because if he's out for 10 days, by the time he's done with quarantine, he might as well fly back to Brazil for the next international duty. Like, what's the point in that? Like, you might as well not do that. That's pointless. So I hope it's not 10 days. I hope it's just 5. But yeah, for those reasons, we had a slightly different back 3. Malang Sarr making his Premier League debut at left-sided centre-back. Andreas Christensen as the central centre-back, and Trevor Chalobah as the right-sided centre-back, with Azpi keeping his spot at right wing-back because Reece James was apparently, or was not fit to start the game or play at least 60 minutes or 90 minutes or whatever you want to call it. But, Tuchel did decide for, I suppose, Malang Sarr at left centre-back over Hudson-Odoi at right wing-back. Who knows whether that's more to do with Chalobah not being as comfortable on the left? I don't know. We will probably never really know. But what I do know is that the first half was decent, but then we started to struggle. Let's get to the midfield. Sorry, I don't know why I lost my train of thought there completely. Obviously, wing back on the left was thankfully Ben Chilwell, and not Marcus Alonso. Like I just touched upon there, Azpilicueta was the right centre-back. Right wing back, my bad. And then we had a midfield 3 of Ruben Loftus-Cheek, Mateo Kovacic, and then got a Kante. Ruben probably is the deepest, and then Kova and Kante in front of him. But like I just mentioned there with Jester, also a bit Ruben, just Kova next to Ruben as a double pivot, and then Kante in front of them. A mix of that, I suppose. And then Timo Werner was up front. But Clutch, what did you make of that when you saw that? Especially Malang Sarr, I suppose.
My heart dropped into my stomach when I seen Malang Sarr start today. Not gonna lie. I was like, this is not good. But then again, yesterday when we were making predictions, I was like, one of my things was I didn't know if James was strong enough to start from after his ankle injury. I do think Cho, if you're not like Cho should be there. I don't really like Aspie in that right wing back role because I mean he just does not provide enough going forward, and that is our problem right now. We need something going forward, and he's going to provide that. Jester
Especially
was
in the
right.
3-5-2, by the way. Like, not just anyway, our wing backs, we rely on them quite a lot, but a little bit less so when we play the 3-4-2-1. But when we play the 3-5-2 or whatever you want to call that, we're even more reliant on them. So then I like Aspie even less there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. And it was like a mix of what me and Jester were saying. Jester got the personnel right, and I was talking about we needed to match up their midfield with the 3. And I mean, that's what we came out to do. I do really like Ruben playing more in that 6 role, but he ends up being the one who progresses the ball higher up the pitch than anybody. I didn't like how high Kante was because, I mean, his final passing is just, it's not there. It's not what it needs to be that high up the pitch. He's a great player. He does everything right with what he does, but it's that final pass that he just doesn't make. And the only person that was even trying or doing close to making that final pass today was Ruben, but he was playing the farthest back. I think overall I like the lineup, but a little heart scare there when you seen Malang Sarr. But overall, didn't really mind it.
Yeah, I would probably agree. Obviously, hindsight is a funny thing and is helpful for people that are in positions like ourselves rather than Tuchel, who needs to pick the team before the game. But like you said there, Ruben was arguably the most creative. I mean, Kovacic tried a lot of creative passes, but very, very few of them came off today. Like, his passing range just wasn't quite there. So that was obviously a struggle. Obviously, you mentioned it a second ago already, Jester, but aside from Sarr, any big surprises to you? Anything that annoyed you or, positively surprised you, I suppose?
Well, I didn't think that Ruben would be playing as a 6. I thought he'd be in as an 8. I thought it was a little bit redundant to have Kovacic, Kante, and have Ruben as the deepest of those 3, right? Because Ruben can give you so much going forward. He gives you much more going forward than Kante does. So for me, I would have put Kante as the deepest person, but he doesn't like to sit. He doesn't like to be the deepest person. He likes to go out and break up play, which is why he played in 8. And I guess Kova is really not going to play that position. I do understand it because of his height. He could have fronted Tony. He did pick off a lot of passes that would have gone over every one of our midfielders except for him.
Mm-hmm. True.
In the first half, not so much. Well, somewhat in the second half, but he's a big presence.
They just played the long balls more out wide, and that's what we struggled with a lot.
Well, that's what they usually do to. Oh, great. Mbuemo.
Mbuemo. I think that's
Mbuemo. Right. We're gonna go with it. Who really played well in the second half, but yeah. Other than that, I figured we were gonna play a 3-5-2 just to match them up, man for man. But I thought Jorginho would start as the deepest, flanked by maybe Kante and Ruben. That was my thought. Yeah, but I understand why he did it.
I get that. Let me just ask you this before we get to kind of looking at the lineup and starting with the ratings. Do you like the fact that us as Chelsea, as champions of Europe, adapt to Brentford?
Well, I think because of the form, it's not like we're steamrolling teams. If we were steamrolling teams, I'd say no, that's not good. But we're not.
Yeah.
And look, for as great as Jorginho's been in the Ballon d'Or and everything else, he is still not a great defender because of lack of physicality and pace.
And he's also not been in the very best of form. And, people know how much I love Jorginho, but, even I'll say that he's not been in the greatest piece of form at the start of the season.
So you have to, and we've struggled, that 2-man midfield of Kovacic and Jorginho has struggled. Even to some point, Jorginho and Kante have struggled against 3-man midfield because they get on top of you and they make Jorginho play defense. And that's the one thing you don't want him to do. So my thought was if you play a 3-man midfield, you still allow some freedom for Jorginho to be the regista because you have 2 other midfielders there. But we do that because we're not in form. We're not firing. And so to match them up man for man, because even if you played Mason Mount up front, he'd still drop and you'd still end up with a 3-man midfield, although it'd be a more attacking midfield. But I think sometimes you have to say, okay, the formation was right because it neutralized them for large portions of that game, but the players didn't perform at the level they should have. I thought Kova was poor. Mm-hmm. He's had a few good games at the beginning, but then he just dropped off a cliff. What was the Kova at the beginning of the season that was playing these beautiful through balls, scoring goals? None of that.
No, it's a weird one for me because I see what you're saying there, but at the same time, I'm like, who is specifically struggling in terms of form? It's the forwards. So we already play a formation which has less forwards than a four at the back. We already only have 3 with the formation we went mostly last season. And now, because our forwards are struggling, we're taking another forward out of the side. So forwards that are struggling, only playing as a pair, makes it even more difficult for them to do anything. I'm not saying Tuchel got it all wrong today, but I'm saying it's understandable that it's even more difficult for Timo and Lukaku up top as a 2 than it is when they have 3 people up there. It makes the whole thing even more difficult, especially against a well-defending team.
We only had one other forward on the bench. Mount is not a forward. He's a midfielder playing as a forward. So we only had Havertz. And
I mean, Cho was also on the bench.
If you want to.
Well,
I know you don't.
I'm going to remain silent on that topic. I'm just going to remain silent.
Fair dues.
Was he actually on the bench? I didn't even look at the bench.
Yeah,
to be honest, I don't even know either, but I presume he was. I didn't really look at it. I don't really look at the bench that much when the lineup comes out because I know who's injured, so I know who's not going to be on the bench. So I presume everybody else just is. But Clutch, anything else you wanted to add to that in terms of formation 3-5-2? Do you think it's an understandable and acceptable thing that we match Brentford? Because I mean, I was talking about it. I think a 3-5-2 could work, but I said Hudson-Odoi right wing back, which is basically saying I want a super attacking right wing back. I didn't want Azpi there playing a back 5. That's not the 3-5-2 I'm thinking of when I want to play a 3-5-2 because people know I don't like a 3 at the back in general, let alone a 5 at the back. So when I say 3-5-2, I need super attacking wing backs. Super attacking. I need aggressive wide centre backs as well, not having to come central. Obviously, we're forced into that by Brentford, but we were forced into that by Brentford because we didn't play any better. So if we're not going to play super attacking on the wing-back sides, then I'm not sure I agree with matching Brentford. Just outplay them. I see what Jester's saying, and it's happened too many times that we have been outplayed in those positions. But I also think in those cases, it was less just about tactics. It was more just about we should have done a bit better, if that makes sense. But Clutch, how do you see the fact that we kind of mirrored Brentford in a way with the formation?
I completely agree. I mean, that was one of the things that I agree with both of you. That was one of the things I was saying yesterday is we keep getting beat when they seem to have 3 midfielders and they overrun our midfield. And that seems to be what our weakness is. The problem is we're putting Timo and Lukaku up on islands by themselves with nobody to get the ball to them. Kova was the only one doing that. And now he's not doing that as effectively. And then you throw Kante into the mix and you have Ruben sit a little bit deeper. It's just like every week I get to more of this, like, sure, we're more secure in the back, but we're struggling to score goals. Like, Chilwell's goal today was an absolute insane goal. Other than that, we didn't even really get close. So to me, our issues are like, we are trying to match up. And like Jester said, if we were steamrolling people, it'd be a different story. But we're trying to match up because we know we're not going to score goals, so we rather just not concede. Like, we just don't know how to fix that problem. And with people being injured, people being out of form, out of position, all these things that come into play, and it just becomes like this perfect mesh of like inability to score goals, but then we get put on defense and we have to defend for our lives for 20 minutes at the end of the game. For me, it's just...
You don't get a second. We should have pushed for a second. If we had got a second earlier, the game would have been a lot easier. But I think what Tuchel always says, if you don't get the second goal, you have to suffer. Well, we had to suffer both on the pitch and as fans.
But I think we had to suffer too early for that.
Yeah.
I think like the craziness at the very end, like the last obviously injury time at the 5 to 10 minutes before that, fair enough. But even from like minute 70 to 80, we had like 30% of the ball.
Yeah.
So go on.
Yeah, well, again, we couldn't get a hold of the ball because one, not the fullbacks, but the center backs are not used to playing with Lukaku or playing with a hold-up player at all. So they don't understand to get their head up and look for him and play the ball to him. They just kick the ball out downfield, and you're just going to recycle possession at that point.
So I will say, like, how many games have we played this season? All competitions, like 10, 11 games? Sure, Sarr hasn't, but Christensen, especially, he must be up to over 10 games, including international breaks, this season. But even with Lukaku, it must be around 10. So when do we get to the point where they understand it? But I will also say, the one thing, I mean, I said I want Haaland over Lukaku. Then once the Lukaku thing became more, I'm like, okay, I might still prefer Haaland, but that doesn't mean Lukaku isn't great. And I still firmly believe that he is great. But what I didn't like is a lot of people creating this narrative that he's this monster in the air. I'm like, no, we're not signing Didier Drogba here. Lukaku is actually not a monster in the air. And the guy's timing for jumping is god bloody awful. Because you can talk about playing the ball long from the back. Even when we do, he loses every header. I'm like, he
got hit in the back of the head again today.
Tammy Abraham won more headers of long balls than Lukaku has today. That's mental. His jumping timing is awful. Every time I looked at it, the Brentford player was already in the air and he was just bending over to start jumping by the time the ball was already gone. I'm like, what are you doing? I don't understand. Like, I'm not as critical as some other people of Lukaku for so far this season, but that thing annoys me. I'm like, come on, at least jump in the right moment. Like, we're using you in this game today. You need to be a bit of a target man, so at least be it then, you know? I know we spoke, was it you, Jester, that said it, or it was somebody else? Obviously, Lukaku does better when he gets the ball into his feet. But some games, we can't do that. So he needs to be able to adapt to that better, in my opinion, than he did today.
Yeah, I just think we lost control of the midfield, actually, in the second half. I don't know if it was they got more aggressive. You know, they made subs before we did, I believe. Before Mount came on, I think they made a couple of subs, or at least one sub. Mm-hmm. I can't tell you why we dropped off, but we did, and they got momentum, and they kept it for the last 30 minutes of that game.
We made the first sub.
Did we make the first sub?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yep.
Because I'm pretty sure their player had a shirt on while Mount was still getting ready. No,
it was Mount. Mount came on. That's the 65th minute. And then they had one come on at the 67th and the 72nd.
Fair enough. But maybe it was also a slight tactical change that they did at halftime without necessarily changing players. But I will say this about the game today, and I'm not going to sit here and criticize the producers of the game. But the second half at times felt like Brentford got the ball, they did something, they showed us a replay, and by the time we next saw what's happening live, we had lost the ball already. So I feel like very often when we lost possession in the second half, I didn't even see how we lost it, because when we lost it, they were still showing replays. So
or the managers.
Did anybody else feel that, or is that just me?
No, or the managers. You know, they show pictures of the managers on the sideline, and it's like, I don't care what the managers are looking like or doing. Let me see the freaking game, man. And then we come back and they have the ball. Like, what happened?
You know, exactly that. Like, that's what I mean. But it's just a bit confusing today, because especially the last person we're going to speak about, the last of the starting 11, is clearly going to be the man of the match. We're going to start from the front, and we're going to start with the guy that people already having a go at me for criticizing. And I'm not even anywhere near as harsh as, for example, my girlfriend is. You should listen to her. It's mental. Lukaku, I mean, I know we were speaking about it off air before we went live, Jester, and you said, well, it was offside, so it doesn't matter, so barely mention it. But I know he was offside, but that miss from Lukaku, oh my days. That was up there with Werner's worst misses. I'm like, what is that? And obviously he scored an offside goal in the first half. And personally, I'm not going to criticize him for that offside, because if he isn't offside, he's behind the defender. So if he stays there, he'll never get the ball. In my opinion, Werner should have run 2 yards more forward to then have a better angle where Lukaku isn't offside. I think Werner is so quick in the first few yards that he could have done that. Hey, it happens. But so I'm not going to criticize Lukaku for that. And Lukaku was involved in getting us the Chilwell goal because he was strong enough to hold the defender off to allow the ball to even fall to Chilwell. So there is a little bit of credit that we have to give him. But
yeah.
I still tweeted it. I still think he looks like a foreign object in our team. I still think none of the other players, and I know I said Mount, and Mount when he came on today, it wasn't there. But, like I said already, we had lost complete control of the game by that point, in my opinion. And also, he was obviously playing deeper, not in the front row. But especially without Mount, Jester might say without anybody, or without, who did you say? Without Pulisic?
Yeah.
It just looks like a foreign object. Like, to me, the rest of the players just don't seem to understand what he's trying to do, and he doesn't seem to understand what they're trying to do. And it happens way too many times. When I say that, that doesn't mean every single pass doesn't work because they try to do different things, but it happens too often for my preference anyway. So I'm just going to start it off with a rating. I'm going to give Lukaku a 4.5.
Wow.
The 0.5 he gets for kind of being involved in the goal.
Yeah, I don't think he did anything wrong. I think he was just pretty much invisible.
But isn't that doing everything wrong as a striker?
Yeah, but that's probably the one position you're most dependent on the people around you.
It is true.
So I was thinking more of a 5.5 or just an average 6 because he was average today. He wasn't. I know we sometimes.
I was thinking between 5 and 4.5, to be fair.
So I'm going to say 5.5 because he was just not there today. It's the game we probably should have played Havertz and Werner up top. Would have had a lot more movement.
And then Havertz came on and he barely touched the ball except in our own box when he was trying to defend. And fair play to him, by the way. He was throwing his body into everything that he could, trying to help us defend. So fair play to him because, a lot of players aren't doing that and weren't doing that even today. So fair play. Clutch, let me put it to you. Obviously, I see a lot of people in the chat saying 3, 5, 5, 4, 4.5. 4, 5, don't blame him too much. Fair enough. So, Clutch, how do you see it? I mean, maybe I'd push mine to a 5, but I still don't think a 4.5 would be too outrageously harsh. I mean, I've seen other things on Twitter and, certain apps and stuff already, and they was giving him 4s and stuff. So, I'm not sure. But, Clutch, how did you rate, I suppose, Lukaku's performance today?
I have him as a 5 today. He didn't get involved. I know we shouldn't count it, but he was offsides, and we're starting to see that where him and Werner are both offsides way too many times. And it's like, you guys are strikers. You guys should be paying attention to that. You shouldn't let them catch you on the offside trap as many times as we do it these days. And we're losing goals. We're losing opportunities because of that. I mean, for me, I just go for a 5. And I don't think it's his fault. I do think it is the people around him. But you're strong and you're pretty good with the ball. You should be making opportunities for yourself if other people aren't helping you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree, but let me stay with you, Clutch. What's Kante right? Do we not know how to use Romelu? I do think that Tuchel is still struggling to figure out how to best use Lukaku. I do feel like the way we're playing doesn't make sense to me. Like I said this before, we're basically trying to pretend that like he's Giroud, but he's so much more than Giroud, but we're not making use of that at all at the moment, in my opinion. Sure, partly down to him, partly down to the players, but I also think the way we set things up.
I think you're spot on with the Giroud comparison because it's like you're trying to make him Giroud when he's better than Giroud. That's not a dig at Giroud because I loved him as a player and he did a lot for us. But at the same time, Lukaku has so much more. He could dribble the ball. He could hold up play a lot better than Giroud can. But I do think Kante was right when he was talking about, like, we don't know how to use Rom because it's like you put the players around him. Werner is better with 2 up top. Correct. But does that necessarily mean Rom is going to be better with Werner? No, because Rom needs somebody who can dribble the ball with him so he can hold up the play. And there's only like 3 players on this team who can do that. One of them is not going to be playing up front, which is Cho. One of them's always injured, Pulisic, and it's Kovacic. And Ruben, of course, but Ruben's not going to be playing up front with him at any time. So it's just the thing is, it's like I need Pulisic or Cho to step in and do more because that's what we need right now. We need somebody who does what they do. And that will fix a lot of our problems. we will start to create a lot more chances. So nothing against Werner. It's just I think Werner is good in situations that don't appear that many times here in the Premier League. Like he's good against low blocks.
Go on.
Yeah, he's good against low blocks where he can get in behind, and you have a midfielder who can make that pass. Nobody's making that pass. We don't have Jorginho and Kovacic are the only ones who are going to make that distance.
The most likely person to play that kind of pass today was bloody Chalobah. Do you know what I mean? And that says enough about what the rest of the team were doing, in all honesty. But I will say this. I personally disagree that Werner is best in the front two. I know that's what he did in Leipzig, but just because that's what they did in Leipzig in the league where there's always acres of space everywhere, sure, there you can do that. I think for us, he's been way better in a 3 than he has been in a 2. Personally, like just look at the Southampton game. He had a really good game, and we're going to get to Werner in a minute. And I don't even think Werner was that bad today. We'll get to it, but it's I don't know. I'm not quite sure I agree that he's necessarily best in the 2, especially because he dropped so much today, which I don't even mind get involved. And he wasn't like as bad as he certainly has been other days at dropping and getting on the ball. He was trying, but I don't know. Today it felt like Werner was having to do every bit of attacking all by himself. That's why I was going to go as lower with Lukaku, because I'm like, Timo struggles with things as it is, struggles with confidence, struggles with touch, struggles with dribbling, struggles with a lot of things. And then we end up in a game where we rely on him to do all of the attacking, and we're doing something very wrong, if that makes sense. But Jester, on that note, I will go last on Werner this time, because I'm very interested to see what you guys will say about it. So what would you rate Timo Werner?
I think he was better than Lukaku, but he still wasn't great or good. So I'm going to go 5.5 for Werner. Actually, I gave Lukaku a 5.5, so I have to go at an average 6. Because he was probably just at half a point better. He didn't do anything.
I would even go comfortably a full point better, personally.
Yeah, I say a half a point because he looked like he was better than Lukaku, but then I go and look at his stats, and they weren't even as good as Lukaku's. If that makes any sense, he had no key passes.
It's easier to have good passes when you mostly stand around, while Werner obviously runs his lungs out.
Yeah, no, he does that every game, but I'm not if you're just running for the sake of running and nothing comes of it, I'm not going to rate that. Okay,
no, that's what I'm saying.
I'm
saying it's more difficult to pass while running, or to pass after a 70-yard sprint than to pass after you've been standing around.
Absolutely. So I'll go a 6 for Werner. I thought he was just average. He did nothing wrong, but he did nothing great. Sometimes you need individual brilliance, and we got none of that from the front.
It's never going to be him, unfortunately. The individual brilliance is very rarely going to be Timo Werner for you.
And we have one guy that does that. Unfortunately, he's injured.
Yeah.
We have one guy that does that on a consistent basis, who can take their man on, beat him one-on-one, and set something up for somebody else. And I'm telling you, I know people think that it's because I'm an American, but when Christian gets back and he plays with Lukaku, you're going to see a lot better offensive flow, because he can beat somebody and set something up for Lukaku. I don't see anybody else who does that.
No. The only guy I could see doing it is Ruben, but he's playing as a 6 these days.
Right.
So, that's one thing. I mean, it does officially, but...
she's giving Lukaku a -3.
Fair dues. I mean, you said 6. I'll put that in there, and we can, if we do happen to change it, we will. Clutch, what about yourself? What did you think of Timo? How would you rate him? I don't know. How would you summarize his performance, I suppose?
It's so hard, because it's like you can see what he does, and you can see how hard he tries to do something. And like you guys said, like, you need individual brilliance, and that's just not him. It's never going to be him. He had that one shot where he was wide open and missed from the top of the box. And I mean, that just sums up Timo Werner. That literally is his whole thing. He gets into great positions, lacks the final third, lacks finishing, and it's just like, I have him as a 6 today. But I mean, it was just classic Werner. Just
I mean, I don't necessarily disagree. Let me just get the super chat. I appreciate it. Melly said 3, so we'll put it down to a 4. let's give it a 4-star because it's not fully the panel's rating. It includes the chat rating. But fair dues, I appreciate it. But hey, if any of you guys want to drastically change the ratings, use the super chat function and get subscribed and smash the like button if you haven't already. But for me, I do quickly want to talk about that chance because people know I've been very harsh on Werner very many times. This is one of the occasions where I will not, because that ball was bouncing and he had to smack it as soon as he got there. There was no time to wait around. If he did wait around, chance would have been gone. And it was like that far over. I'm not going to be harsh. I don't think should be, far criticized of that. I think Timo today for me, and I'm not even going to go much higher on the ratings than you guys. But I think Timo, there was a lot of moments where he was about that far of being great. Like, for example, one through ball he received from, I think, Kante. And one of the defenders just about got in there before Timo Werner would have had a lovely angle to, curl it far corner. That was so close, but also he should have seen that guy and blocked that guy off from running into that pass lane. Because if he just held his run a little bit more and waited a little bit further back, he could comfortably have blocked the defender off and not allowed him to clear it. And those are the small things where I'm like, that's not a big thing to do wrong. It's just a tiny, tiny thing. But it's that tiny, tiny thing that in that moment changed from him having a sitter or from him not having a chance because the defender got in there. So I would personally have given him a 6.5. I think, if anyone did anything going forward today, it was him. Obviously, aside from the Chile goal. But, if you boys say 6, that's how democracy works. So a 6 it shall be. Let's get to the midfielders. Let's get to the most attacking midfielder, weirdly. N'Golo Kante. I tweeted, I'm not sure if I said this to you off air, if I said this on it already. I don't think he had a good game since the Spurs game. I did say that's why we were live. And I don't think he was brilliant today. This is why I wanted to give Werner a 6.5 because Kante for me is a typical 6 today, but I think he was worse than Werner today. So that's why I would have liked to give Werner a 6.5, just because I think a 5.5 is harsh on Kante. So just, I will probably still give Kante a 6, but there just wasn't enough. That one that really frustrated me. First of all, he gave away a lot of fouls today. Let me check. I will check.
I'd be open to moving Werner up to 6.5.
Let's see what you guys say about Kante, and then we can decide whether we move Werner around or what we do with Kante. But I will check when you guys are talking how many fouls Kante made today, because it felt like a lot for his standards, especially. And then there was one moment in the second half where he literally had to play a 1-yard pass to Ruben and messed it up. I'm like, come on, you can't even play a 1-yard pass now. Like, what is this? That triggered me. Obviously, he had good ball recoveries, and he even had a couple of good dribbles. One of Werner's actual biggest chances, which the effort got blocked from in the end, was set up by Kante with a decent dribble and then a decent, just put it through as a simple pass. But overall, I didn't think it was brilliant, but he wasn't all bad, so it's just decent. So that's why I'd go 6. Jester, what about yourself?
Yeah, I would say 6. He committed 3 fouls, 1 clearance, 1 interception, 1 tackle.
Just 3 fouls?
Yeah, that's it. He had 1 key pass and 2 dribbles. Yeah. So to me, he's a 6. I don't know what the deal with Kante is. I can't tell you. I know he's been off. Some would say he's just rusty. He looked like he had energy, so I can't say that's it. And, there was times where you saw Kante, what you were expecting out of Kante. I think he's better playing in a double pivot, playing off a holding 6 as a 6 that's allowed to roam. I think that's it, so you don't actually expect anything offensively from him. And when you get it, it's a plus. But now he's in a position where he has to be an offensive player, you're like, it's not so good. So I say a 6 for Kante, and the reason you can give Werner a 6 and Kante a 6, let me just say this, because they played 2 different positions. So the expectations of what they're doing on the pitch is different, and you can come up with the same score, because he wasn't poor, but he didn't do anything great going forward. So he played more like a 6 as an 8. If that makes any sense. He played more like a DM. Yeah, he played more like a DM than a CM. So
yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, this is people say it about people like Lukaku. People say it about me doing it for example, for Jorginho. The defense that some people come up with for N'Golo Kante sometimes is probably the most baffling thing in all of football to me. After Paul's goals, thinking Manchester United have a better defense than us. Did you watch them today, Paul? But that's a whole.
That's a perfect response to Paul's
that was
goals
the
right
tweet
now.
today. That was the tweet of the day today. Everybody said that.
No, exactly.
It was going off.
I said it in the tweet in the afternoon. I was like, well, Paul Scholes saying that is about as clueless as the people that think he was better than Gerrard and Lampard. But those people exist too. I just don't understand why people sometimes we're not sat here saying Kante was god awful, but you can't just sometimes you're allowed to criticize Kante as much as he looks nice and he is cute and everything. You're allowed to criticize every player, and even I criticize Jorginho. People forget about that every time I do it, but hey. So we have 2 6s so far. So Clutch, you're going to have to be out there if you're going to change that 6. But what did you make of N'Golo?
I'm not going to change it. I'm going to give him a 6. I see the chat talking about we need to remember he's a DM. It's sure, I do know he's a DM. I don't blame him for not being good going forward, but that is what he was supposed to do today. I mean, if that's what you're instructed to do, then you're supposed to be doing it. I can criticize you on that. I understand that that's not what his position is, but it's his final pass. One of the things that frustrated me is when he was passing to somebody, it was always under hit. Almost always. It was never perfectly weighted. It was never even over hit to the point. It was always every time he tried to get the ball out to Azpi had to slow down to get it. Every time. And that was just getting really annoying because I would slow down attacks. I would slow down the pressure that we'd have on the back 3 for them. And then everything would fizzle out. I mean, that is part of the problem why we were lacking within the attack is his passing and his final third passing, which isn't his fault. That's not his game. His game is to roam and get the ball back. That is his game. But when we're using him in this way, it's just you're not getting the best out of Kante. And personally, if you were going to do this, like Jester said, he needs to be in a back 2 with the double pivot. He needs to have somebody else there so he can go do what he's got to do and have the freedom while somebody's staying back. And it's just that's just not what was going on. So I'd give him a 6.
I will just say this, yeah. Kante duels today, 14. He won 4. He lost 10. While on the other side, Mateo Kovacic, won 6, lost 3. So he was in less. Obviously, Kante will be in more duels than Kovacic will, just because Kante has, the instinct to get there like barely anybody else in world football. But because we were talking about it also before, that Kovacic was poor, did Kovacic just seem more poor because he attempted the more difficult passes, which could have changed the game had he pulled them off? But anything Kante attempted was never out there enough to change much of the outcome of today's game anyway. So in that sense, was Kovacic worse than Kante? I'm not sure. Because it seems like a bit high to give Kovacic a 6 to me. But when I compare Kovacic and Kante, I don't think Kovacic was much worse than Kante. So I'm kind of struggling to put a number on Kovacic's performance today. But Clutch, what did you make of Kova?
It's hard because it's he did make a couple good dribbles, which is something that he always does. He did help back in recovering possession, but at the same time, he also struggled with that final third passing, where he was overhitting balls and misplaying them, or he did have that one pass to over the top, like that half volley pass to, I don't remember who it was, but I think that somebody blocked. I don't know, but he did have a good pass. I'd probably give him a 6 because it was just in from him again. Like Jester said earlier, just was lacking the final third pass again. Like I think that's something that our midfield struggle with, is just that final third.
It's difficult because when I think about it, and I'm not sure if that will show up in any stats, to be honest. How many times did Kovacic even get into the final third properly? But I'm not even trying to say that as a criticism, but when we were in and around the box, like we usually do when Jorginho plays and we control it and we, just open up our shape and we spread it out wide and then we have a few people around the box and then it just depends on breaking them down. I'm not even sure how often Kovacic was in those positions today. It's a weird one. And I mean, Lance, if you could stop using caps, that would be appreciated, just because it's a bit annoying. Everybody else sticks to normal writing, so please do as well. But I mean, you're not wrong with that. But I also think to say, oh, that's because Mount came on for Kovacic, that's just silly. Because, I mean, the reason why Kovacic had to come off because he made a silly foul and got himself booked. Otherwise, he probably wouldn't have come off, but he had to come off because if we had to make another tactical foul, he would have been sent off. That's why he had to come off. So that tactical foul, which he didn't, I mean, he had to make in the end, but he shouldn't be getting beaten like that in that situation, in my opinion. He got played too easily with a step over. That was a bit silly. But for me, I'd probably give both Kante and Koba a 5.5. I think I generally, except for Timo, I'd just be a tad lower with all the ratings than you guys so far. But if we're going to give Kante a 6, I'm probably going to give Koba a 6 as well from my point of view. But just how do you see it? Especially after I tell you that, you know, Kante won 4 out of 14 duels and Kovacic won 6 out of 9.
Yeah, but again, I thought Kante was better going forward. And as bad as he was still better going forward than Kovacic was. And you're playing an 8. You have offensive and defensive responsibilities. I know that he came off, and I know you said yellow card, but eye test, not stats-wise, but eye test, I thought he was the poorest out of the 3. It just looked like he was the poorest.
But do we perceive it that way because he attempted the more difficult passes and failed at them?
It's possible. But I thought he had turned the corner.
Yeah.
You know, first few games, he was, I don't know, maybe that they finally shipped the correct Kovacic back from Croatia to us. I think they had, you know, they sent a different one for the first few games. But
maybe. It's like Barkley in preseason. Nah, let's not disrespect Kovacic like this. But I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying, and I would probably, I don't know, the eye test is like I said, I have the same feeling, but then when I think about the game more, I'm like, so what has Kante actually done? What has Kovacic actually done? How many times was Kovacic at least close to creating something positive? And how often was Kante close to this? I'm like, Kovacic was probably closer to it more, even though Kante was the more offensive player.
Yeah, I'm not married to a 6 for Kante either. I just thought Kovacic was the least productive via eye test of the 3 midfielders, so I went 5.5 for Kova.
Okay. I mean, we're clearly not far off each other anyway. I suppose, you know, you both went 6 for Kante. I maybe would have gone a tad lower. Now you both went 6 for Kova, and
I'm not married to it.
Yeah. But
I think if we keep it this way, Werner needs to go up.
Yeah, just bumps Werner to 6.5, and then we could stop.
You know,
I
agree with you boys. Let's spread some positivity. Let's leave Kova and Kante to 6, push Werner up to 6.5 rather than lowering the other 2 guys. You know, some positivity. We're still top of the league as much as today wasn't brilliant. Let's get to Ruben. Someone today was quite funny. Someone today, you always criticize Kante when your favorite player isn't playing. I'm like, lads, my favorite player is not Jorginho, that's the point. Loftus-Cheek. So shut up. Who I was very pleased today again with, I think we said it off air before, the last 10, 15 minutes, I'm like, Ruben, you're big, you're strong. I would love it if you could help us get a bit more control into this game here. But then I also said, well, if even Kante, who's the best at winning ballbacks in probably the world, couldn't help us, how can I expect Ruben Loftus-Cheek to do it, who's learning a new position, which everyone tells me is why I should be okay with Hudson-Odoi not playing well at right wing-back, even though he's played about 20 games there by now. Ruben has played about 3, and he's still great as a single 6. I don't know how we've managed to do this. The kid has never played as a single 6 since he was 12. And in 3 games, all 3 times he played there, it's been fantastic. Aside from Chilwell, because of the goal, I think Ruben was our best outfield player today. I'm not sure if you guys will agree. I'll put it to you guys in a second, but I'd probably go 7.5. I'd go 8, but then the last 15 minutes happened, so I'd have to put it down to a 7.5. That's what I'd go. Even though I see how that's a bit high with how much control we lost in the second half. I see why people would say that. But hey, I keep saying it. I know I'm fully biased for Ruben Loftus-Cheek. There's no hiding from this, but you're going to have to just put up with it. So let me go with you first this time, Jester. Do you agree? 7.5? Because someone said it there, Fantasy PJ Duo, levels above everyone in the first half. It's true. Like, it honestly, the way Ruben played in that first half, and the way he's played a couple of times when he came on as well at Juve against City, blah, blah, blah. It felt like when sometimes I watched Barcelona and Messi had the ball. Not that he's as good as Messi, but he's that much better than the rest of the team. That's what it felt like.
Let me read.
So much, like at everything. That turn when they were pressing us, one to his right, one to his left. He gives it a Cruyff turn, sends them both flying. I'm like, no one in this team no one else would even attempt this. And I know you boys are both American. I know you both kind of like him. Pulisic wouldn't attempt this, and Pice isn't here today, but he would tell me that Kovacic would. No, he wouldn't. No, the only guy that does this is Ruben. Just go back to that, what should have been an assist in the League Cup final against Man City a couple of years ago. Only Ruben does these things. And it's crazy that, I don't know. But hey, I'm just happy that he's getting game time. He started the 2 Premier League games in a row for the first time since April 2019. What a remontada. Big up Ruben. But Jester, sorry, I tried to put the floor to you and kept talking anyway. My bad. Go on.
So a few stats. 4 completed dribbles. He was fouled 5 times today. Mm-hmm. Defensively, he had 3 total tackles, 4 clearance, 1 blocked shot. Passing, 68 touches. 68 passes, 89.7% completion rate. 7.5. He made the 2 people that were playing in front of him look worse than probably they were. But when somebody who was supposed to be on loan or sold outplays you, you got to start looking at yourself. He was by far the best midfielder. And I guess if you're saying outfield player, you're not doing center backs with the outfield players. Because to me, some of the center backs were pretty good today, considering the pressure they had on them.
That is true, to be fair. That is true. I will say just quickly, because you reeled off stats there, he also had 13 recoveries.
Yeah, he was brilliant. And, I almost prefer him playing as a 6th to Jorginho, because at least he can play defense.
Yeah, in a way, I kind of agree. And you know how that's weird for me, because I love Jorginho. But when I see it, I'm like, if there's one thing I'd want more from you, Jorginho, it's be more like Ruben. Right. It's weird.
Grow about 3 or 4 inches, put on about 20 pounds.
Yeah, at least. In the first half, I forgot his name, but that Brentford player basically ran into Ruben, fell over, literally broke his face. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah, I was looking for the arm stuck out, and he just ran into his shoulder. It was a Rudiger on De Bruyne situation.
Yeah, literally. But for Rudiger, it was at least the shoulder. Ruben was just his chest, and the guy fell over.
Yeah, so 7.5. I thought he was brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, hey, if you boys want to give him an 8, I'll be happy to do it. But I think I'm trying to reel myself, my bias. I'm trying to reel it in. Hence why I didn't go 8. But Clutch, would you have gone 8? Would you have gone 7.5? Would you have gone lower?
I am going to be a little bit biased. I'm going to go with an 8. I'm falling in love with the Ruben. I'm falling in love with this Ruben. Honestly, like him playing as a 6, he did the Pulisic role today, which is he drew fouls when we needed to control the game. That's one part why we were in.
As well. Yeah, and he somehow gets his body in there.
He just pushes. He just gets in the way and then just gets rolled over and he gets a foul every time. And that's just that was one of the big parts why we were controlling the first half. Is we were getting fouls, we were able to start controlling the game. He stepped back when he needed to. If they were pushing up, where he stepped back and sat with the back 3, he did that. He did everything that a 6 is supposed to do, and he's not a 6. For me, he's outshining. The thought in my head, or midway through the first half, is this guy has been our best player for the last month or so, and he wasn't and he wasn't even here, and he was barely playing for Fulham last year.
No, he was playing all the time, but he just wasn't getting goals and assists like we all would have hoped.
Wasn't he playing striker though, or false 9 striker?
That was one of the things. He played striker, he played right forward in a 3-4-3, he played centre mid, he even played wing back at one point. That's why in the game FIFA, he's a right mid this year, which I'm like, I mean, I know they're Canadian, but still, just watch some games and understand that he's clearly not a right mid. What is this? Anyway, go on, sorry.
But yeah, I would just show him love because he is by far right now our best informed player. Other than maybe the guy later that we'll talk about, but
I know maybe about it.
I mean, you could certainly still have Rudiger up there, who obviously didn't play today, but Rudiger has still been very solid pretty much every game we played all season, to be fair. Before we drown in positivity, before we get to Mendy Chilwell, the winning goal scorer of the winning goal, whatever. and not combine them. Let's go with Azpi first. And Azpi today is for me today the definition of I don't even know what you did. I didn't really see you do anything wrong, but I also didn't see you do anything right. The biggest moment I saw from him, I was literally just going to say that the biggest moment I saw from him was tying Mendy's shoes, which worked out well because Mendy didn't concede a goal. So big up Azpi. But aside from that, he lost a few too many headers in the box. But at the same time, if the other people are taller than you, how much of a go can I have at you for that? I don't know. So I'd probably just go along with the 6 for Kova and Kante, which I think's a tad high, but just because I don't even know what to criticize or praise. I mean, if obviously you boys, I'll ask you guys, but guys, put it in the chat. Did you see anything particular of Azpi, anything good, anything bad? I mean, people are saying 5.5, 6, 5, 7. 7? That's a bit of a push, but fair enough. Let me go back to you, Jester. What did you make of Azpi? Did you see anything from him?
No, I just looked at his stats. There's literally the only thing positive you could say about Azpi, he was our highest pass completion percentage today.
Well, you can't say he gave the ball away then.
Yes, he did not give the ball away. I think he had 3 crosses, wasn't spectacular. How many games did Spain play this break?
3.
2.
No, 2.
Did he play both of them?
Yes.
Okay. I thought him and Chalobah were good on defense on that side. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to say a 6 because he didn't do anything wrong, but he didn't do anything to make you sit up and go, wow. So, and I think he was gassed by the end of the game, by the way. That's why he came off for RJ.
It might have been, which is, I mean, if he was just super dead, fair enough. But I thought the way we were struggling at that moment, don't bring Reece on for Azpi unless totally necessary, like you said there. I'm like, just add him. Just more people in the box that can win a header because we were losing every header for the last 15, 20 minutes of the game.
Here's the question. Who got the armband when he went off?
I have probably Kante.
Anybody in chat? Because I didn't see who got the armband.
No, I presume it's Kante.
Yeah, I would presume it too. But yeah, 6.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I would probably go along with that. Clutch, what about yourself? Anything particular that stood out to you about Azpi?
No, not.
So
I'd go 6. I'd go 6.
Fair.
I didn't it was like the definition of just middle of the ground. Didn't see anything good. Didn't see anything bad.
That is fair enough. We'll get to the centre backs in just a second, ladies and gentlemen, because I have seen a couple of people talk about it already. Let's get to Mendy Chilwell, the man who's barely got any minutes of game time until about 2-3 weeks ago, and now has scored in 3 consecutive games. 2 for Chelsea, 1 for England. All 3 of them very nice goals. I mean, okay, the 1 for England was just smacking it home, but the 2 he scored for us, even though the one against Southampton didn't look so great because it needed goal line's acknowledged, and it was actually a great save from McCarthy, was just behind the goal line. That man's volley technique is out of this bloody world. Like, people talk about, Alonso gets you goals. I'm like, have you watched Chilwell, man? Have you watched it? The only thing I will say about Chile today, unlike against Southampton, but pretty much all of his corners were really good. All of his corners today were pretty poor. That was a bit unfortunate. But I think today, his overall performance, I would probably give him 6.5, 7. But he scored the winner. So I think he needs to be on the same as Ruben. I love Ruben, but I think just because he scored a winning goal, he deserves to be on that 8. Even if his overall performance wasn't as good as Ruben's, if that makes sense. I mean, if you boys go both lower than that, fair enough. But that would just be my logic. So, Clutch, what about you? What would you give Chile, and how would you rate his performance, I suppose?
I'm gonna give him an 8. He was productive offensively. He was putting in crosses, making the runs, combining with people on that left-hand side. But like you said, like during Southampton, he was doing really good on corners. Today, it was just like, I'm going to put it right at the goalie every time. The goalie got every corner that he ever kicked. And other than that, I mean, he did score the winner, so yeah, about an 8.
Fair. I quickly, just before I put that to you, Jester, just this quickly, I'm just going to call you Demi, but saying, the lineup was bad when Timo was stepping up for free kicks. That first free kick when he was just stood there and then talking to Kova in German, talking about who's basically meant to shoot. I'm like, what is Timo doing there? And then he turned up again for the second one. Again, didn't shoot. But I'm like, how did we get to a situation where Timo's even lining up for potentially taking a free kick? Is it much better that Lukaku took it? Not really. But at the same time, Drogba used to. But Drogba just used to, I don't know, you look at Drogba and he took a free kick and you're like, you know how to take free kicks. I've seen one free kick from Lukaku now. That's all I need to see. Even if it wasn't that far off target. He just didn't look like someone that should be taking free kicks.
Didn't Lukaku take free kicks for Inter?
He did. He did take a few.
Did he score any?
I think so. I think he got one.
Did he?
Yeah.
I've watched a lot of goal compilations and I didn't see a free kick.
To be fair, who else on the pitch was going to take them?
Chile.
He meant for Inter. I mean, yeah. Okay.
Well, I guess you could say that, but Kovacic took one.
Yeah, but surely rather cover than Timo.
I don't know. I'd rather have somebody who's used to shooting.
To be fair, Cover shoots a lot, just always hits throws in.
that's okay. Maybe that's what we're saying.
But the free kick was his closest effort. Like, it wasn't even that bad. Just about touched the wall still, and even then nearly went in deflected. So fair enough. But Jester, what did you make of Chile? How would you rate him?
Well, okay. I gave him a 7.5 because I gave Loftus-Cheek a 7.5. I thought he was our best attacking player.
Yeah, I agree.
And we did have one attacking wing back on the pitch, and that was Chilwell. For me, I did a preview on a different channel, and the host of that channel is an MA hive, Marcus Alonso hive, and he was. You're gonna regret not having Marcus Alonso. Not really. Chilwell is. He's doing everything that Alonso.
Is it Sadiq or is it somebody else?
Yeah.
Sadiq is the Marcus Alonso high.
Yeah. He loves Marcus Alonso.
Well, now I can't take him seriously anymore.
But to be fair, Marcus Alonso really hasn't played badly this year. He hasn't been. Well, look. You wait for that Marcus Alonso.
You watched the Juve game.
Yeah, but I don't think he was horrible. He wasn't great, but you're looking for the Marcus Alonso disaster class. Talking about West Brom.
No. I think we've given Alonso a 1 in one game and a 0 in another game. So I can't remember which games it were, but fair enough. No, go on.
Man City was definitely one of them.
So
yes, I think it was City and Juve.
Chilwell is so underrated, and I feel bad for him because Gareth Southgate is an idiot playing Luke Shaw out there. I mean, Luke Shaw is horrible. He had one good year, and all of a sudden he's supposed to be better than Ben Chilwell. Yeah. Now, Ben Chilwell is fantastic, and I'm happy for him because he suffered at the beginning of the season. So I'm fine with an 8 if you're going to give him the same as Loftus, because that's what I gave him, the same as Loftus.
That's fair. That's fair then. The only thing I would love about Chile if he had a bit more of a right foot, but I think there's probably very few left backs that have a good right foot. That probably doesn't really exist. So how harsh can I be on that? Well, let's get to the back three. And let's start with the man who made his Premier League debut today. And I tweeted during the game, I hope I don't jinx it, but Ballon Sarr defensively, up until that point, that was about an hour gone, was superb. Later on, struggled a bit more. There was a few over-the-top balls that him, and to be honest, the whole back three weren't good enough in the air. They were good on the ground defending, all three of them. But in the air, I don't think any of them were good enough, to be honest. But obviously also forced by Brentford just being really good at that. But Sarr, fair play. Myself, Jester, and, we were talking about it yesterday, hoping don't even bring Sarr up as a potential in the starting 11. Fair play to him, stepped up, showed some good pace as well in defending, made some good tackles, kept his own, didn't make any crazy mistakes like he did in pre-season. So fair play to him. I would probably, for him, because it's his debut, because I expected so little, I'd almost like to give him, like somebody said there, a 7, even though it's probably more closer to a 6.5 in reality. But just because I'm so impressed by it, maybe even a 7.5 is fair. I don't know. We'll see what you guys say. Maybe. It was just the end was just Mendy. When your goalkeeper has to make that many saves, the defender's kind of been that great. I'll just say it straight like that. When you have 3 centre-backs and your goalkeeper still has to make that many saves, the defender's kind of been that amazing. I will just say it like that. But let me go with you, Clutch. What did you make of Big Ballon Sarr today?
I'm shocked that he did as well as he did, considering last time we seen him, he was one of the lowest that we rated him, or rated on the pitch. He did very well, especially in that first half. He was keeping...
I was just sent the screenshot, sorry to interrupt. He also had the most interceptions for us today. Had 6 interceptions. Fair play to him.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I mean, he seemed to be doing really well. I would go with probably I'd be leaning more towards a 7, probably, because I think Chalobah was better because Chalobah did have that backline clearance, but Chalobah almost gave up a penalty. That was like a 50-50 call that Chalobah probably could have got called.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. We'll get to
but,
that. Also, sorry, I didn't read the screenshot properly. He also had the most clearances of any player on the pitch with 10. So maybe we do have to look at something close to a 7.5. We'll see. But I think a 7 is absolutely fair, Clutch. Anything you want to add, or shall we go to Jester?
Nope.
Fair. Good, Jester, what did you make of good Sarr today?
Yeah, shock of all shocks. But this is why Tuchel's such a great coach.
Yeah. Right?
He was, he also had 65 passes at a 86% completion rate. So we all were dreading Malang Sarr when the lineup came out. I don't want to hear anybody who thought he was going to be as good as he was. I don't want to hear it, because you're lying. Okay? All of us saw it and you went, oh, crap. But he was brilliant, and I will give him a 7.5.
Fair. Hey, I don't. And by the way, I read this wrong. Not only was it the most clearances today, it was the most clearances by any Chelsea player in any game all season. To be fair, also very few opponents have pushed us back as much as Brentford did today. City have, but City didn't have a striker, so there was nothing to clear for centre backs. And Liverpool, I guess. So I would have maybe expected someone to be close to this 10 against Liverpool, but fair play to him. Fair play to him. And to be honest, with those stats, on his Premier League debut, I think, we had the positive vibes for Kovacic, Kante and Timo. So why not do the positive vibes for Big Malang Sarr? And let's move on to Andy Christensen. Probably the one that I noticed the least of the 3, but that's probably due to Brentford's formation of having the 2, and one was with Sarr mostly, and one was with Chalobah mostly, and Christensen was kind of just in the middle, if that makes sense. So, I don't know. Like I said, I still think, Sarr had the clearances and blah, blah, blah. I don't want to go a full point lower for Christensen, but I'd kind of go for 6.5 for Christensen. Not because he did so much wrong, but because I just didn't notice him doing that much right. And then when our goalkeeper has to make that many saves, can I just, if I didn't notice the defender doing anything crazy good, can I just all of a sudden pull it out of my ears to pretend he had a 7? Not for me. So I'd go 6.5, maybe even 6. 6 seems harsh, but again, I didn't notice him, just like Azpi. So why am I giving him a higher rate than Azpi if I didn't notice them equally? I don't know. But I'm undecided. So I'll go to you boys first. Jester, what about Christensen?
I was going to give him a 7 because he had 70, the most passes on the team at 74 at almost a 92% completion rating. 3 clearances, 2 interceptions, 2 block shots. And I thought for the most part, especially in that first half, he kind of kept Ivan Toney's flick-on headers to a minimum. There was 1 or 2, but nowhere near what we saw Toney do against Liverpool. And I don't want to hear that man is 5'10".
No,
don't want to ever hear that again.
I texted you as well. We were talking about it. Google is wrong. Like people are always scared. Oh, Google knows everything. They control our lives. I'm like, man, they don't even know a Premier League striker's height.
I don't have his aerial duels, I don't think, on stats. I'd have to pull up Sophia's score for that probably.
I'll try to find it. You keep talking.
But for me, I say a 7. Because I actually thought Sarr was probably the best of our center backs, even though Chalobah did have the goal line clearance. And if you remember, I think it was the first half, they did flick the ball on to Mbuemo, and Sarr came across from the left center back position, slide tackle, and stop that whole tack, which you don't think that you're going to see in somebody doing their first game, especially since we've seen him before.
Yeah.
And I think that Rudiger taught him how to tackle too, because he had some mean tackles.
That's true. Yeah, that is true.
I think he went to Rudiger's slide tackling school. So
I did, by the way, find the aero duel stats just quickly so you can include it in your rating potentially. Not like we're rating Ivan Toney here, but he won 11 error duels and lost 3.
Who,
And
Tony?
mind you, that's why I'm not sure because a lot of people are talking about how great Chalobah was, and I know he had a goal line clearance. But for the most part, I thought Ivan Toney kind of was playing with Chalobah. I think Chalobah was really struggling to do anything, and those stats with Tony mostly being on Chalobah kind of back that up. But sorry, I interrupted you about Christensen. Go on.
No, I thought Christensen was a 7. I thought he was a step down from Sarr, but not a huge step down. He did everything you asked him to do. And yeah, I thought probably Chalobah was the weakest of all of them, but he wasn't that bad. Again, he did have the goal line clearance. For me, Christensen's a 7. He's just continually, and he signed the contract, I believe. So that's +2.
We'll give him a +0.5 for that. To be honest, you've kind of convinced me. I'm now more between a 6.5 and a 7, and Clutch will be the deciding factor. So, Clutch, Christensen, 7, 6.5, or anything different?
I think you both talked me into something different. So I'm going to say 7, but it'll be for a reason later with Chalobah.
Go on.
Because I did think, you guys did convince me, Chalobah was probably the worst out of the 3, and I do think he got very lucky that he didn't get that penalty called, because Anthony Taylor could have very easily just said, you know what, I'm just going to take it on myself to do this penalty, because he was onside, but the fact that he just said, screw it,
I still find that strange by VAR, because we don't know what VAR did with that, do we? Because did VAR, because it looks like he's onside, right? But did VAR check and see he was offside, and that's why they didn't review the penalty? Or why did they not review the penalty?
Because it wasn't a penalty.
I think it is.
I
mean, Tony makes loads of it.
Oh, yeah.
Of course he does. But if
that would have been a penalty last year.
We're sat here crying.
That would have been a penalty last year. This year, they're supposed to, because they've changed the going down easy in the box.
Yeah, but he did clatter him in the throat with his elbow. Like, even if it's obviously slow motion makes it look a bit soft. And I see what you're saying, but it's like, if that's not a foul, we're playing rugby here.
Yeah, but again, he made the most of it. Yeah, it was a little bit clumsy from Chalobah. I wouldn't have given the foul if I was refereeing the game, because it was there's always more contact that happens between center backs and strikers, and they're not given. And so he went down way too easy for me.
But would you, if that was Lukaku or Werner who got hit like that, would you be calling for a penalty? Because I would.
If it's Lukaku, I tell you now quickly, sorry to interrupt, I'd be fuming that he went down, because I'm like, stay up, get the ball.
Yeah.
But we're not Brentford. As Brentford, I fully understand why he did that.
But yeah, again, Tony's a big dude. That didn't put him on his butt. He went down. He went down.
He did went down. But I don't like that's the referee's fault, that players need to go down to get calls. That's not the player's fault. The players need to go down, because if he doesn't and stays up and says, man, he elbowed me in the throat, but he doesn't go down, well, there's zero chance on earth he ever gets that call. But whether you go down or not doesn't decide whether something is a foul or not.
Well, we just got done watching internationals in CONCACAF. That's not given as a foul. Matter of fact, the player going down could have gotten a yellow card for that. And what me and Clutch were watching at international.
Maybe that's why Pulisic keeps getting injured over there.
Yes, it is, because a yellow card is a foul. Okay, a yellow card over here is just a plain foul. A red card over here is a yellow card.
Okay, so what is a red card if you just punch someone in the face?
You have to stab somebody.
I don't think anybody got a yellow for the foul on
today, so that's probably less likely out there, but I see what you're saying. I just quickly want to bring this up before we get to the Chalobah rating, because Fantasy PGA Joy is saying something here. Sarr's aerial duels were 40%. Backline got bullied in the air despite being tall. I mean, I don't think Sarr is that tall, but true. None deserve a 7. I do kind of wouldn't mind dropping them all by 0.5 personally of what we have done so far, because I do think we were too woeful at the end to give a defender 7.5. I know you gave him that, Jester, but don't you see that point made, especially when someone has a 40% aerial duel percentage?
I understand that, but Sarr is number one. He's 6'1". He did most of his good work on the ground, positionally. He had a lot of clearances, and I chalk up the pressure from the midfield and the forwards from not holding the ball up and helping us play out. Okay, when they have 7 people forward and you've got 3 defenders, you got to have some help from someplace. So since that back line has never played together ever in a competitive match, and we kept a clean sheet, yes, it was Mendy, but there's a lot of blocks there as well from the center backs.
Although the best block of the day was Chilwell.
Yep.
Although I'm still not sure. You know that one shot from tight angle where I'm still not sure if Mendy saved it or if Chile blocked it. But even if Chile didn't block it, the fact that he was flying in there as the only guy to be there in our 6-yard box, fair play. But sorry.
Yeah, look, you kept a clean sheet. Mendy's part of the defense, just like the 3 center backs. And so we're going to give Mendy a higher score than the center backs. Obviously, he's man of the match. But to say that they were not above average, because you're talking about 30 minutes in the game. There's another 60 minutes that they were brilliant.
Yeah, but it's 60 minutes brilliant and 30 minutes kind of pretty damn bad. Enough for a 7.5?
But were they actually bad? Were they actually bad?
Are we having the same conversation if Kep is in goal?
Well, you don't know. No. I don't do hypotheticals. I'm not even going to go.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying, like, if you're asking, because the person we're going to rate later is the reason why we're not asking more questions of our center backs right now.
That's what I'm thinking as well. I'm thinking the same thing. I think we should, and even if you don't agree, Jester, I'm going to ask Clutch because democracy. Do you agree, Clutch, to lower both Sarr and Christensen by 0.5?
Yeah, I do. Because of that last half hour. I mean, that last half hour could have gone. That half hour could have gone really, really wrong.
Yeah, if it was the last 10 minutes, I wouldn't be sat here saying this. But it was like 20 to 30 minutes, and that's too long to not ignore, but to drastically outweigh, because the end of a game is arguably more important than the start of the game if your forwards don't score. Do you know what I mean? Because if we concede an early goal, we can still make up for that. If we concede a late equalizer, that's a bigger problem, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But let's get to Chalobah. And just because we did overrule you, Jester, I do apologize. Let's get to Chalobah. Right. What did you make of him? You said for you it's not a penalty, so for you he didn't really get away with it. So then that probably doesn't lower it for you. Certainly had a good goal line clearance. It wasn't the most difficult goal line clearance. The ball was kind of bobbling to him and he just smacked it away. But he still had to be there, and he was there, so fair play to him. And even though I do think he got beat by Ivan Toney overall, I still think, considering how young he is and how inexperienced he is, I still think he did a good job. Because obviously it was Malang Sarr's Premier League debut today, but Malang Sarr had a few seasons of pretty much playing every game in the French league. And sure, the French league is not as good as the Premier League, but still, he had a full season of doing that. So in terms of professional football game experience, I know Chalobah had a couple of loans as well, but still, Sarr is higher on that level. And I think for that matter, still, Chalobah, I think we forget that how inexperienced that guy is still, just because he's played so well whenever he has played. So with that in mind, I still think overall he's done good. But I think he got lucky with the penalty, but go on.
I think he was probably not as good as Sarr or Christensen, but here's the thing. You took him down everybody down to 0.5, so I have to give Chalobah 6 now. Which is the same thing we gave to Kante and Kovacic. And he was better than Kante and Kovacic. So I have to say a 6.
Now, see, the problem is, now, just quickly, for Kante and Kovacic was subbed off by the time we really struggled. So we can't criticize Kovacic. But, I mean, I did it a little bit for Ruben, which is why I initially said 7.5. But Kante was also on the pitch in those 30 minutes where the defender struggled. The midfield also struggled.
Oh, so, yeah, everybody did during that time.
Maybe we need to lower Kante as well.
Take everybody down to 0.5 for the last 30 minutes.
All right, I just fought for Timo 6.5. I'm not taking it away again. For once, come on, Jester. Everybody always hates me for being so harsh on Timo.
Okay, yeah. So that's a makeup score for all the other ones, right?
Exactly that.
Okay, give him the same. And I don't think he was as good as Christensen.
Why don't we just 6.5 then?
Yeah, I just don't think he was as good as Christensen.
Yeah, but I just think his game was easier, Christensen's, than Chalobah's, because he didn't have to deal with Toney for the most part.
So, somewhat in the first half. I think that they moved Toney out to the left a little bit more to put him on Chalobah to get him away from Christensen.
Potentially. Okay, you won me over 6-8.
Plus, you thought he gave away a penalty.
Yeah, true. I mean, for me, maybe I would go 6 for the penalty anyway, but you said for you, it's not a penalty.
Yeah, for me, he went down too easy.
Fair. I mean, let's put it down as a 6. Let's ask Clutch. You were initially of the opinion until we kind of started talking about it that he was one of our better, if not the best of the 3. Now you kind of maybe changed your mind a little bit. But do you think a 6 is harsh, or would you like to go the same as Christensen?
I agree that he's probably the worst now. Looking back on it, I mean, if you combined everything, Anthony Taylor being the ref, and then you think in that situation that Anthony Taylor didn't call that a penalty, like, you'd be shocked. If you said before the game, like, that situation would happen and Anthony Taylor didn't call that penalty, you'd be shocked. He might have went down too easy, but at the same time, it very easily could have been given a penalty.
Big up Dubois.
Yeah, I think it did. I actually think it did.
I wouldn't be surprised if it did, yeah, honestly.
I mean, to be fair, he looked like a normal ref again for once. Yeah. And he was calling more fouls for us than they were for them.
Yeah, he let a lot of rough challenges by our players go.
So, I mean, to be fair, I'd keep it a 6. I'm okay with that.
Fair enough. For Mendy, I'm not sure if any of you were ever here for one of these instances. There are special occasions where people are better. You know when you sit in your room at home, right? And you look up and you have a ceiling there. But if you'd imagine you'd have the Incredible Hulk in your room, he'd just smash the ceiling. And that's what Edouard Mendy did today with a 10 out of 10 rating. So I would make a petition for at least an 11 out of 10 rating. Would we agree on that?
Whatever you give him, I was going to give him a 10. So
yeah.
So, I'm not worried.
We can also give him 100 if you want. Just add another.
Sure, there we go. 10 times 10.
There you go. He played as well as 10 goalies at once.
Yeah, for me, he was brilliant. Now, to be fair, that happened for 30 minutes of the game. The other 60 minutes, he didn't have a whole lot to do.
No, it's true.
And I think the posts came in handy twice. Once in the first half and once in the second half.
Obviously, not his fault. Like it's not like Mendy did something wrong in the post tape.
To be fair, that's making himself big enough that he only gives him that angle to shoot at the post.
Hey, I was a keeper, and the post is your best friend when it goes out. So that's not a shot on goal, but they had 17 shots, 7 on target. So he had 7 saves.
6 saves.
Is it 6 saves? 7 saves.
6 saves, yeah. But maybe they gave the one to a Chile block or something.
I don't know. Maybe they did. I know he got one with the face, so he gets points for that.
He does get points for that. Honestly, like, let's not even just rating. Obviously, we did that 100. Who cares? He was man of the match. He was by far the best player. Like, that guy. Like, I mean, obviously, Mane and Koulibaly are both fellow countrymen of his, Senegalese, and they were talking about, when you think about it, how Mendy is below Azpi in the Ballon d'Or thing, I don't understand. And this is no criticism of Azpi, but if we're going to have 5 there, and we have Lukaku for what he did for Inter, fair enough, and obviously Jorginho, Mount, and Kante for us, also fair enough for me. But if you're going to add another to that out of our players, I would certainly go for Mendy over Azpi.
I'd go for Mendy over Mount.
Like, some of these saves were unbelievable.
I'd go for Mendy over Mount. I don't know what Mount. I don't. Look, for his stats and for him just not winning the Nations League, not the Nations League, the Euros, I don't see why he's there.
I see why he's there in the top 30. Obviously, I don't think he should be in the top 10, but I think in the top 30 is fine.
I think he's in the top 20.
Is it
or they're close there by, like 22. 22 or last time I saw him. Maybe they've moved it again. But
I didn't know they released specific positions. I just thought they did. This is the top 30 without giving specific position.
Yeah, for me, he shouldn't have been there. But if you're going to have him there, Mendy's won everything that he has.
Yeah,
and he was more consequential for that for those wins. So for me.
Not quite sure about that one because I don't think Mendy bailed us out that often in Champions League while Mount literally provided the winning assist.
Yeah, but didn't you set a record in Champions League for least goals scored?
But unlike today, I would mostly give that down to our shape and defenders. While today, this is not down to the defenders, but to him, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but you still have to keep him out of the goal. I mean, he's the last. So he's part of the defense, so he gets that shout out. So he's part of the defense. So for me, Mendy should have been mentioned in there. But I think it's all a moot point. I think Messi is going to win it anyway.
Yeah, so do I. Honestly, well, I still don't know. Do any of you guys know? Because obviously, people have made this case. Are we doing this Ballon d'Or now for the past 2 years because we didn't hand one out last year, or are we still doing it just for 2021?
Just for 2021.
Well, then,
I mean, did they actually say that? I didn't hear anything. I just heard that it's just here. So we don't know how the people who are voting are going to vote for it.
Yeah, but you never know how people are going to vote for stuff. It's supposed to be for 21.
Yeah.
The entire year of 21.
People talking about Lewandowski need to get in the bin.
Well, I think he set a record for...
He did. And I said this on the stream, you weren't there, but Timo Werner scored 28 goals in the Bundesliga. Bundesliga goal scoring records don't count.
Well, I think Messi's going to win it because they want...
Copa America, yeah.
Copa America. So he's going to win it.
To be fair, he was good ball out to Chilwell for that in that build up to that winning goal. Fair play. But like I said, I'm not saying it should be, whether it's instead of Mount or not. I think they can both be there. I'm not going to have a fight between them two. If that
was it Pedri there too? You could just take Pedri out.
Yeah, but he didn't play for Chelsea.
I mean, Pedri is great.
Doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to
for
be.
Barcelona.
I also saw that Sterling was there.
Who doesn't even play for City anymore. But to be fair, he was good at the Euros.
He didn't win anything.
He didn't win anything.
Hey, all I'm saying is Pedri doesn't belong on that list.
That's always what Ballon d'Or. It's the whole thing. I mean, we've spoken about this before. The whole award should be scrapped, and if it isn't scrapped, it should be given out in the summer. The fact that we do this for a calendar year is the most stupidest thing I've ever had. We do it for the end of a season and then the start of the season. So the start of the season, no one cares about because no trophies are handed out. So basically, we're giving out a Player of the Year award for 6 months.
True.
Which is completely stupid. So do it in the summer, like the UEFA's awards are done. Then you can at least give it per season, which has some sort of logic to it. But doing it per year is just illogical.
Yeah, I think Jorginho is out because they didn't win Nations League. If they would have won Nations League Italy, he would have been right there with a shot. Because he's not a prolific scorer or in the position he plays, he had to win every trophy he was up for.
The thing is, isn't it all one vote? They don't do another vote. So the vote's long done, isn't it? Because otherwise we wouldn't have a top 30, would we?
Well, I think they narrow it down before they send out the ballots.
I thought everyone can just vote for everyone.
I don't know. I don't know the rules, actually. I don't really care.
I don't know either.
For me, Ballon d'Or is nowhere near a Champions League trophy or a Premier League trophy.
No, of course not.
And yeah, so for me, it's individual and a team game, and they don't mean anything to me.
Exactly. Just quickly, Clutch, is there anything else you wanted to add to Big Mendy?
Nope. 100's fine with me. Perfectly fine. I was going to give him a 15 anyway.
That is. Just quickly, the substitutes, to be honest. I mean, I guess Mount probably had enough minutes to get a rating, but other than running after the ball because we had no control about it, I didn't really Mount didn't do anything. But could he have done anything more? I mean, Jester would probably tell us yes, but I'm not.
I thought Havertz was better.
All three of them to get an NA, to be honest. But
I thought Havertz was better than Mount when they came on.
But
yeah, I don't disagree. But it was Havertz was kind of here.
Well, he had one or two attacks up front. I just. Yeah, just give them all NAs. It's not worth having this argument over.
Not even an argument, but I just think because they're forward-minded players and we just had nothing forward, can we even give them a rating?
But he had 25 minutes mounted over almost 30.
He did. Go on. No, go on.
My criticism of Mount would be he came on to do his job, which is to press high up, and we still got pushed back. We didn't win the ball in the midfield. And he got pushed back. sure, it's because he was in the midfield.
I mean,
But,
we can
like,
give
that
him
would
like
be-
a 5 or something if you want. Like, I'd be absolutely like.
I was
probably a
not
5.
very happy with Mount today, but I'm also not gonna go on this like tangent of like he deserves to be really bad because I do think he was not good and he didn't do what he was supposed to do today. That's all.
I agree with that, and I'm sure Jester would agree with it as well. The only reason why I'd probably lean more towards an NA is because I struggle to judge and define how much of that was his fault and how much of that was the fact that, the stadium was like pushing Brentford, and Brentford were just so all over us that no player would have been good, if that makes sense.
Again,
that's why I'm leaning towards an NA, if that makes sense.
You're up for a Ballon d'Or. You're supposed to be special. He didn't do anything special. Yeah, that's why he got a 4.
The guy missed from 2 yards.
And that's why he got a 4.
That's true. It's true.
So,
to be fair, you wanted to give him a 5.5.
Yeah, well, I thought he wasn't as bad as as other people thought. I have a different thought process when it comes on striker. Werner didn't really play as a striker today. I don't know what he played. He played all over the field. But
he was more of a 10 than anything.
Yeah, Mount for me, he was brought on to change back the momentum, and he didn't do that. That's why the sub was made. Because we were already, and thinking back on it, we were already getting pressed at the 65th minute when he came on, and I thought that's why Tuchel was bringing him on to change things up and get Kova off the pitch, because Kova was looking kind of weak, and of course he had the yellow card, and he didn't want him to go off with a red. Taylor was looking at something like that, but Mount was supposed to be come on to change the momentum of the game.
He was, yeah, and that didn't work for 100%.
And he didn't do that. So
what rating would you give Mount then?
I'll give him a 4.
Yeah, see, but then I would give Lukaku a 3.
He was on for 25 minutes, gave you nothing when he was the key sub. Havertz was to get Lukaku off, because I don't think Lukaku's fully fit. He doesn't look like he's fully fit.
But then stop playing him because it's not working anyway.
Then you're playing Havertz and Werner. So for me, Havertz was a 5.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't disagree with that, to be honest. And James is only getting an NA.
Yeah, he wasn't on enough.
Yeah, but Clutch, what if you had to give Havertz and Mount a rating? What rating would you give them?
I don't know about Havertz, but Mount probably a 5. I don't think he's as bad as Jester perceives. Like, I do agree when he said that like his job was to come on, press, and change the momentum of the game, and he didn't do that. Now, I agree with you also at the same point. I will say one thing just quickly. That's what we think his job was. We don't know this for sure. I'm just saying. I agree, but that's one thing that Mount does. That's like his main thing. That's his main point in this team. Yeah, but Kante's main thing is also winning the ball, not trying to create chances, and still Tuchel makes him do that. So what do I know? Yeah, and we still got to judge him on that fact. Now, I agree with you. I can't tell you if that's all his fault, because I don't think it's all his fault. It's an entire team effort at the end of the day, and we were just getting battered from the last 30 minutes. Could it be that he just happened to be the person that came on at that time? Sure, but I think he was also subbed on to change that, and he didn't. So I would be more inclined to give him a 5, but I'm also not. I don't think he was as bad as Jester puts him out to be. All right, we'll just give him that 4.5 then, and we'll quickly talk about big Thomas Tuchel. I just put him on the Ruben there because if I put him on the Mendy, it's just too far away from everything and no one can really see. So let's talk about Thomas Tuchel today. Obviously, we spoke about the lineup. Defensively, putting Sarr there worked out, kept a clean sheet. And Sarr was, according to us, the best defender we had today. So I can't exactly say he got that wrong. I do still think he got the shape wrong. And I do still think it would have been better had Hudson-Odoi played right wing back. Not instead of Azpi and then Azpi somewhere. But then again, yeah, I mean, Azpi instead of Sarr probably wouldn't have changed much, in all honesty, because not like Sarr opened our play from the back like crazy. So I think Azpi at left centre back probably would have been just fine.
But Aspie instead of Chalobah against Tony would have been worse. So in that sense, that I see that part, but I still think offensively we could have been much better if Hudson-Odoi played there. And I'm not saying because Hudson-Odoi is the be-all and end-all, but I think everybody can agree that Hudson-Odoi is better offensively than Azpilicueta is. And also not even just better at it, just more offensively minded. While Aspie today, against Southampton, he had those drives and was just going forward. And sometimes sometimes I'm almost surprised how offensive Aspie ends up sometimes. And I'm like, I think we don't perceive him to do that. But today was the kind of wing-back performance we perceive of him, where I'm like, I want more from you going forward, and he didn't really provide it. But I just don't think the midfield, as much as, Ruben was great and did his thing, I don't think it worked out. I just look at this, right? Before we give a rating. How are you meant to score loads of goals like this? When, Chile was here, but Aspie never moved much further than here. And then Kante is here. And Werner was dropping all over the shop, all in these areas. Bloody Werner was everywhere. And then it was almost like this. How are you going to score a goal like that? So I wasn't too pleased with Thomas Tuchel today, personally. And I also think, and my girlfriend already had a go at me saying, I'm taking it too harshly. I want Mr. Thomas Tuchel to appreciate Ruben a bit more. I didn't like his pre-game statement of, height and physicality. I'm like, all right, don't make him sound like it's Alonso.
I don't think that was his point. I think that was...
don't say it like that anyway. Don't make him sound like Alonso, because the stupid fans will think of it like that, though.
Yeah, but I actually said it in the preview. I don't know if it was on your channel or a different one, that you could do that to offset and play Chilwell because you have Loftus-Cheek there. And I think that was more to...
Oh, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying that shouldn't be in the end, we watched the game, and every game he's played so far under Thomas Tuchel, was the best thing about him his height? No. So that's why I don't understand where that statement comes from. Even if his height is useful, his best attribute in any of the performances has never been his height, though.
No.
Just appreciate the other good things he does. I'm not saying don't say that he's tall. We're all aware of that, but praise him a little bit. But I know that's also my bias. I just want some praise for Ruben.
Right. Now, I think he'll get it after the match. Maybe I haven't seen the post-match comments, but I think that was to kind of tamp down why isn't Jorginho playing? And I think that was probably the substance of that argument is Ruben's taller, more physical than Jorginho. And when they play a front, the front two that's physical and confident in the air, or at least one of them is. I don't know. I think Mbuemo's game is to run on the flick headers, not really get in the air. I didn't really see him in the air, so I still think
our midfield would have been better had it been Jorginho, Kovacic, and Ruben rather than Kante. I still think that. People might tell me I'm wrong, but I still believe that would have given us more control, especially late on in the game. That would have made things a lot easier. But let's get back to Thomas Tuchel. Overall, Brentford had only lost one game so far this season. They got a 3-3 draw against Liverpool. We, who apparently, according to Bowl Goals, have a much worse defence than all of Man City, Liverpool, and Manchester United, kept a clean sheet. Sure, that's part of the goalkeeper, but still, we did. Liverpool did not. We knew how to deal with their counter-attacks. We also, what I wanted to mention quickly, not necessarily just on Tuchel, that's obviously mostly Anthony Taylor, not Anthony Taylor, that's a ref, Anthony Barry, who's the set-piece and defensive coach. But I really like the fact how high of a line we played when defending free kicks, because that really took the sting out of most of Brentford's free kick threat. And obviously they're really dangerous from that, which we discussed yesterday. So big ups to just the managing staff, full stop for that. But I think, for example, the change of Lukaku that happened too late, I think that should have happened earlier. And I think the third change also should have happened earlier with how much we were struggling. So for me, Tuchel gets 7 today. Yeah, I think I'm being nice if I give a 7.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with you here. I thought he was an 8, considering the things you just said. Arsenal got smacked. Liverpool.
Yeah, that doesn't mean anything.
Okay, no, but when you're going, they've only lost one game. If they would have won this game, they would have been in the top 4. And you can see why. They're very well drilled, very well coached.
A bit like Sheffield United in the first season they were up, and next season Brentford are probably going to struggle quite a bit.
Well, I think they have better players than Sheffield United, though.
True.
But I think he played to nick a 1-0. Seeing that lineup and that's a more defensive midfielder.
Okay, but
I think he played.
I don't understand how you can come up with an 8 because that's just complete luck and hope that Mendy plays as well as he does.
Well, I don't think he thought that was going to happen, but I think he knew it was going to be tight. 1 goal difference. Even though I said 3-1, I think that he thought seeing them play against Liverpool and the other teams they've played against that it would be a tight game, which it was. And so he put a defensive midfield out to stop the midfield and allow the center backs to deal with the strikers. So I thought he was an 8. Just the fact that we got a 1-0 victory after an international break where we usually get destroyed. West Brom, anybody last year? Anybody remember that game?
Yep.
So
which one?
the one after the international break. When we got smacked 5-2.
The Tuchel one.
No, the Tuchel one. We got smacked 5-2. Was it 5-2? Yeah. That Thiago got sent off again?
Was it 5-3 in the end? I don't know. Whatever it was.
It was we got smacked. And that was right
the same
after
one that Christian got hurt at halftime or something.
That's the one we right after an international break. And we usually play poorly coming back from international break.
We do.
So I thought he was an 8. So
I mean, no, fair. Hey, everyone has their own opinion. There's no wrong and there's no right in a sense. I do agree, though, with what Fantasy PJ does, that we relied on Mendy heavily today. That doesn't overall then deserve an 8. Like, if the goalkeeper has to bail you out, the manager can't be too of a perfect performance in a way. From my perspective. But hey, Clutch, how would you rate Tuchel today so we can finish this off and see what rate we give him, I suppose?
I would be more inclined to give him a 7 than an 8. His post game comments, he said that we played very strong for 70 minutes and then we're lucky for the final 20. He said we were lucky to have Mendy on our team.
For him saying that, I was going to do 7.5 for the middle of us, but for him saying we played well, I'm like, sorry, mate, did you watch the game? Yeah. Like, we had 1 shot on target. You can't be telling me we played well against Brentford. Like, I know they're good, but I expect us to have more than 1 shot on target against any team, not just Brentford.
We're the champions of Europe.
We're good for 70 minutes. I'm like, that's awful.
Yeah. Well,
but it's
I don't like relying on defense, which it seems like that's what we're doing. We're not creating plans to get attacks involved, and I don't like that. That's the only reason why I'd give Tuchel a 7. Is if we're going to rely on defense heavily, then we're going to struggle, and it's not going to be a season where we're going to win the title because you can't just rely on defense this entire season.
Well, the statement "defense wins you titles and offense wins you goals" does come from somewhere. So I think actually, if anything, relying on a defense, it makes us more likely to win than if we did the opposite and just rely. You know how Liverpool didn't win the league under Rodgers because they were not good offensively, but just tried to outscore everyone, and then they failed at outscoring everyone. Obviously, ideally, you want to find that mix, and that's what we need to get to. But yeah,
that's what I'm saying is we don't have a mix. We're going for one side.
Yeah, but is that our players or is that the way we're being coached?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. It's a little bit of both.
I think it has more to do with the fact that our players are out of form and are not playing well.
But that's up to the coach to set them up in a position to get that form.
Yeah, but they played this formation for 6 months last year.
Yeah, and also they came back Thursday. So I just quickly as a last thing I want to mention before we round it out here. I saw a quote by Maurizio Sarri, big fan of him, yesterday, or was it earlier today? He was basically saying the players these days actually train more with their national team than they do with their clubs because they always have these basically 2 weeks with the national team. Sure, sometimes they play 3 games in that. But teams, especially the teams that play midweek games, we never train. Even our actual preseason with the actual squad was a week long, 2 weeks long. When do we actually train? And I see what Sarri said today. And also, by the way, big up Amanda Broja, first start for Southampton in the Premier League today and scored their winner, giving Southampton the first win of the season. So big up Broja. Also had a good international break again, scoring the winner for Albania against Hungary, if I'm not mistaken. But ladies and gentlemen, I think we're going to round it out here. At the end of the day, let me just finish it off on a slightly more positive note. We're top of the league. And that's really all I can ask for because eventually, hopefully, things are going to improve. At the start of the stream, I saw someone in the chat say it reminds me of Kante's second season. And I said that the other week already. It feels like it. This 3-5-2 all the time, getting a bit lucky. And then at some point, if we don't get lucky anymore, it's like Conte season. But hopefully, instead of not getting lucky anymore, we will just improve and then everything will be great. Because, I do think Tuchel is a better manager than Conte. Not just in terms of tactically, but also in terms of not pissing everybody off. And Conte has a tendency to piss everyone off. Except Lukaku, who loves him apparently. But we're top of the league. I'm not going to complain. We have another more than doable fixture in the Premier League coming up next week against Norwich, who we should smack, to be honest, quite frankly. Which, by the way, Billy Gilmour didn't start for Norwich today. What is that again? You haven't won a game yet. He's the only good player that you have, basically. And now you play up next week, which means he can't play. So now Billy Gilmour is not playing for 2 weeks. Like, what is that logic? I don't understand. But hey, it is what it is. Jester, Clutch, I appreciate you both very much for coming on. Big shout out to both of them. Check out their Twitters. They're down in the description below. Thank you guys for watching. Up the Chelsea, upwards and onwards. We move. Of course we do. Because, Malmo on Wednesday. We'll see you for a preview on Tuesday, of course. And then obviously player ratings on Wednesday after the game. Thank you guys for watching. Up the Chelsea, upwards and onwards. And I'll see you next time.